Hey guys, my name is Devonte, and I sacrifice my time so you don't have to. Now, before we even continue, can I ask you guys to do me a favor? Like, a huge favor. I've talked about this before. Personally speaking, I put timestamps on damn near all my videos. Like, literally everything. Even sometimes when I'm just doing a normal commentary video so you guys can skip the intro. But for my top 10 videos, for my top 5 videos, or for my top 20 or top 100, whatever, like, don't leave timestamps. You know, like, if I want to leave timestamps, then I would leave timestamps. You don't ever have to go in the comment section and put timestamps because I'm going to do it for you. There's no reason to. But for these top 10 and top 5 videos, the whole purpose of it is to, like, you know, engage with the actual content. If you want to skim through it and talk about it amongst each other in the comment section, I don't mind that. I get that. That's awesome. But, like, don't be a spoiler. Don't put the comment in the comment thread or anything like that. And no, as always, I'm a firm believer in free speech. I'm never going to go out of my way to delete your comment. The rules are no different than my Millennial Smart channel. I'm still the same person. I'm not going to delete your comment even if you were to put the timestamps down below. I'm just asking kindly, please do not leave timestamps about each spot on the list, because kind of want to have the engagement, you know what I mean? Like, come on, help me out now. I don't really ask for much. I don't ask for likes or any of that nonsense. I put it in the intro as a little bit of a, you know, running gag, but like outwardly asking for likes and subscribers, I never do that. Like, almost never. And if I do it, it's mainly in a jokingly manner. I'm asking, please do not leave timestamps. Please don't. Now, with that being said, last night, so this is for future reference. So today's day is October 22nd, 2023. It's a Sunday. Last night on Saturday, we had Bound for Glory. Now, personally speaking, I'm sorry, I don't really care for Impact Wrestling because, you know, to be quite frank, they haven't really given me a reason to. They're not easily accessible. I just don't really have it in me to care. You know, maybe they are a good product nowadays. I'm not saying that they aren't. But when you're not easily accessible and you're not mainstream enough, that's just the way it is for me. I really don't care. I'm not one of those people, I have to go dig in the underground. You know, I gave up those smart years in the past for a reason, because it was too complicated to have to keep up with all the wrestling in order to be within the know and show my authenticity as a professional wrestling fan. You know what? Actually, I might leave a timestamp. I'll leave a timestamp to skip the intro. Other than that, don't put any more timestamps though. But, you know, they did something last night for Bound for Glory, and that is what I want to call newsworthy. They apparently are no longer going to call themselves Impact Wrestling. They're going to revert back to their TNA name, which is fine. I mean, personally speaking, outside of now, I never really referred to it as Impact Wrestling. You know, I always called it TNA, even when it was no longer called TNA. I don't even know how long it's been since they were not called TNA, to be perfectly honest with you. But I mean, I mean, congratulations, but in the end of the day, what is that really changing? You get what I'm saying? That's not really doing anything. And then on top of that, last night, and I don't feel this had anything to do with Impact. You can say WWE, and maybe Bound for Glory had like a slight impact on the ratings to a certain degree, but I don't think, not enough to make them drop dramatically, right? Well, this week for Collision, their viewership number, well, today's the 22nd, right? So their viewership number last night was 482,000 fans who tuned in to watch the program. Mind you, you have WrestleMania main eventers on that card. You know, people like Bryan Danielson. I'm not sure if Edge showed up last night, but I'm just going to presume he did. I'll just say he did. Probably not, but I'm not sure. But regardless, he is on the roster, so there you go. You have people like, you know, obviously Christian, legends throughout the wazoo, and you still pulled in 482,000 fans. So it's not just the name, because at the end of the day, like I said beforehand, when talking about the guys like CM Punk, when you bring in names, that only does so much. It gives you a nice pop, and you should definitely capitalize on that. But in the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily keep fans wanting to watch, because once you bring that person in, it's usually for a nostalgia pop, or it's for, like, you know, the shock value of it. And then it goes away, and then people don't come back. Maybe they come back to see the superstar, but once they come back to see the superstar, then the effect just gradually goes away. And I want to talk about a couple things in regards to AEW. As a matter of fact, I want to list you guys 5 things that I feel that AEW could do in order to put themselves in a position where eventually they can actually compete with WWE and they can be a legitimate alternative. Now, this is a little bit different than my other list. Usually I like to shit on AEW, I'll shit on WWE, I would tell you the things that I specifically like about the companies, and all this shebang bang Wednesday, I'm saying bang, right? Whereas with this, I'm going to tell you, in my expert opinion, what I think they actually should be doing, whether I like it or not, in order to grow and eventually put themselves into a position where they can legitimately be an alternative and face WWE and do certain things that I don't feel even WWE is doing. Some of them they are, but some things on the list I don't even think WWE is doing all too well or at all. So with that being said, let's go in on the list. So before I continue on with this list, also, you see number 5 already. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. I do want to say that none of these things on this list have anything to do with any type of backstage stuff. Everything that I'm talking about contributes to the show in itself. You know, I'm not going to sit here, I'm not going to make a list of, you know, oh, Tony Khan should stay off of Twitter, or oh, the wrestlers, they should stop fighting backstage. That's all trivia bullshit that no casual fan gives a fuck about, okay? That's just internet dorks who care about them. I'm talking about things that actually matter to the casual fan, that actually matters to the programming in itself, that actually matters in regards to entertainment aspects. I don't really care about backstage drama or any of that bullshit. So, with that being said, number 5, and this is just my personal, oh, and by the way, this is all from least to greatest as far as what I mean, or as far as what I care of and importance. They need to downgrade their roster. They have a lot of people on their roster. Personally speaking, for me, when I do my universe mode, I make it a point to have no more than 30 wrestlers. If I have more than 30 wrestlers, someone's going to get cut, or a tag team's going to get cut, or a woman's going to get cut. I do not want to have more than 30 wrestlers on my card. And usually how I like to do it, personally speaking, I like to have at least 5 main guys. I have the champion, and then I have 4 supposedly contenders for said championship belt. So if there was ever a time I want to do a fatal 4-way match for the championship, or excuse me, a fatal 4-way match for a number 1 contender shot, or a triple threat match, or maybe some tag teams involved, or, you know, maybe I wanted to have 2 guys feuding with each other on separate occasions, but they're upper main event stars, you know, I feel having 5 top guys is strong. That's what you want. That's just my personal opinion. When you come to the mid card, again, personally speaking, this is just my own opinion, I think you should have at least, bare minimum, you should have at least, I'd say around maybe 8 strong mid carders. You want to have your actual champion, you want to have 2 upper mid carders, and then you want to have at least the other 5 guys underneath them kind of fighting and vying for a spot on the kind of actual legitimate mid card. And maybe, well, I'll probably say maybe 3 guys fighting in the legitimate mid card, and throw like 2 people underneath for the lower mid card. That's how I feel it should probably be, in my opinion. So right there's about 13 guys, or yeah, about 13 guys overall. And then you get down to the the tag teams. You got to have at least 5 tag teams, 5 strong tag teams. Same, you know, concept as I used for the main event scene. And, you know, at that point you got 23, and then for me personally, as far as the women is considered, you want to have at least 7, just 7. You know, you want to have 6 women as strong contenders for that champion who's going to be the 7th woman. And that's all you really need. All you need is 30. Now, granted, if it was WWE, maybe you want to have about 40, because you obviously have the Royal Rumble. You want to have 30 people in the Royal Rumble. Like, you know, that's obvious. But at least for AEW, they don't have things like that. They don't need to worry about things like that. And even if you have to do a battle royal and stuff like that, bring in some jobbers, just kind of fill the void. But you don't, as far as people who are contracted and showing up on TV all the time, just 30. The reason why I say that is because you want people to actually engage with those superstars. You want people to actually have a legitimate relationship with those superstars. And if you have so many people on the roster, it kind of dilutes it a little tiny bit. You know what I mean? Like when I watch a television show or when I watch a movie, I want to be able to name all the people in the movie that I like, or at least the bare, how can I say this? At least I can name the people who matter the most to the actual movie in itself. When you have 70, 80, 90, 120 people on the roster, and you have them spread so, you know, openly, where people are being left off the card and stuff like that, that doesn't help anybody. that really, really doesn't help anybody. Whereas I look at it and you have at least 30 guys on the roster, there are people you can primarily focus on. People can have favorites if you're fans, and everybody gets an opportunity. And people may say to themselves, oh, that's harsh, Devontae. You should probably remind you. Now, again, I'm not saying they shouldn't have like a developmental system. And mind you, they have ROH still. I'm not saying get rid of ROH. But what I'm saying overall for AEW is, yeah, there should probably be a primary focus on top tier stars who are filling that void for the 30 superstars. That's just my personal opinion. You don't have Raw and SmackDown to have an established brand for these wrestlers to be on. These wrestlers can wrestle all over the indie circuit. Maybe they can go to NXT. Maybe they can go to Raw. Maybe they can go to SmackDown. Maybe they can even go on ROH, like I said beforehand. But as far as what you want on your primary cable television network, you should probably stick around with 30. That's just my opinion. If you want to go a little bit higher, like 40, that's fine. But I personally stick to 30. But again, that obviously varies. Number 4, keeping up with the tradition of downgrading, you need to get rid of all AEW programming that's not Dynamite. Like, get rid of all of it. Get rid of Collision, get rid of Dark, get rid of Elevation if that's still around. Get rid of all those shows. Again, a subsidiary or a sister programming like ROH, that's its own entity. That's fine. If anything, take the same steps that I'm talking about right now and apply it to ROH also. That's its own entity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about AEW in particular, underneath that trademark. Get rid of every programming that's not Dynamite. Why? Because the heart grows fonder when you're not around so fucking often. When you're flooded with AEW programming and you have like 10 matches on all these cards, and everywhere you look AEW's around, and you barely get even 1 million views, it's just so ridiculous to me. And all you're doing overall is continuously watering down your product by having all these shows just all around. Again, it's like the wrestlers. It's like, you have so many and so much. It's like in your face. It can be kind of overwhelming sometimes. That's if you're a fan of the show, I would presume. But if you're not a fan of the show, all you're saying to yourself is, well, I can afford to miss it because they're just going to recap it on the next show. Or they're going to do something that's going to be a little bit more extravagant on the next show. No, don't do that. You look at Raw in 1998, and I like to think that one of the reasons why it got so freaking hot over that summer period in 98, for example, before they established Sunday Night Heat, the reason why they got so hot was because they couldn't get enough of Stone Cold Steve Austin, but he was incredibly limited. You did not get Stone Cold Steve Austin on Friday Night SmackDown. You did not get Stone Cold Steve Austin on Wednesday Night NXT. You did not get Stone Cold Steve Austin on Saturday Night Collision. No, you got Austin on Monday Night Raw every Monday. And if you wanted to see what he was going to do, you'd have to tune in at 9 o'clock at the time to 11 o'clock to see what Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to do. If you didn't, you missed out. And in today's culture, you have this whole FOMO, fear of missing out thing going on. People are going to want to see what's going on, even with social media and stuff like that, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit also going forward. An element of having less shows, and I would say this also, even having less shows, I think that actually might help out your pay-per-view business model also. I think having one show and now the next show, if you want to get your fix of AEW programming, is going to be the pay-per-view. So you're getting the climax to all the shows that you've been dying to see for the longest. You get what I'm trying to say? So hell, even at that way, it's like, okay, you're now promoting the pay-per-view because of, people needing their fix in order to watch the programming, and they're going to pay money to want to see that. You know what I mean? Again, it's the same concept that went in the Attitude Era. Apparently, we don't like to use business models, or more importantly, we don't like to use business models that happened in the past. It's ridiculous. But yeah, downgrade some of your shows. Again, the heart grows fonder when you're not around all the time. People may not like this one, but I'm not speaking for you guys, and I'm not really speaking for myself because I'm not really too fond of the idea. But just going off of the formula and what you've seen happen in professional wrestling in the past, going forward, and kind of to a lesser degree right now with Roman Reigns, but I can't really say him because he's barely around all the time to even kind of give him that point. But as I talked about before with Stone Cold Steve Austin, you guys grew up on John Cena. You guys, The Rock. Hulk Hogan, Bruno Sammartino. What do they all have in common? What do they all have in common? Why are they all considered one of or the greatest wrestlers of all time? It's because primary sole focus was on what the hell they were doing at the time. That's why when you have that kind of focus on a superstar continuously, it does kind of build up a repertoire with your fans, because it kind of makes you think to yourself, hey, there's some type of symbolic notion that's going on right now. And I don't know, if the superstar happens to be super duper hot at the time, it just kind of lends credence to whatever your company's currently doing at that moment. I feel personally you should have a primary focus on a certain superstar, and not just that, throw in the world title with that also. Now, I'm not saying the primary superstar, the biggest draw of the company, has to have the world championship all the time. Obviously, some of the money comes into the chase, but I will say that the majority of the time, to kind of, again, build that symbolic relationship with your fans, is to have the world championship on the hottest guy, not just throwing it on a person because you feel the championship belt is going to help him. As has always been said, the championship doesn't make the person makes the championship belt. That's my biggest problem with an MJF right now currently, and to a lesser degree even Seth Rollins on Raw. It's the fact that you have guys who are world champions who are not being shown on a consistent basis, who are not being shown or highlighted in that manner. The only person who I see highlighted in that manner most of the time is a Roman Reigns. And even then, I don't like to count him because he's never around. You need to put not just the world championship on your primary focus, but your primary focus needs to be all over the card. If they're the hottest person and the casual fan sees this person being fun, what they want from this person is to see more of them throughout the television program. And if you have someone who's starting to get over, they're in the wings, you notice them, they're doing their thing, then you put them in the position to, eventually, who knows, maybe dethrone them. Maybe they could be the A1, A2. You can have a Rock and Austin situation on your hands all over again. And then, who knows, maybe that builds into something else. And then that builds into something else. And that builds into something else. And you get to a position where you're WWE in the year 2000 and everybody's fucking over. Like, I'm saying, like, that does work. That snowball effect is real. Again, look at Austin in 1996. Nobody, for the most part, was that over besides Austin. Not even The Undertaker. But by the time you get to 1998, due to what Mike Tyson did to put Austin kind of on the map as far as getting primary focus on him from a mainstream audience standpoint, and then what Austin did just fed to the rest of the roster. And then it got to a point by the year 2000 because people came to see Austin, and by virtue seeing everybody else, they got over by proxy. Focus on the primary superstar. It does benefit, and yeah, at first you're not gonna like it, but sooner or later your favorite's gonna be in that spot, and then trust me, you'd like it. Set a precedent. Primary superstar should be focused on, and honestly put the world championship on them if you can. Number 2, and I feel this was really, really close to being number 1, but I feel like I got something else that's a tad bit more important that I want to discuss at number 1, more at full length. But number 2, in my opinion, and I've been harping on this since the inception of my Millennial Smart channel, but I'll reiterate it today, I'll reiterate it next week when inevitably that position is going to rear its ugly head. I'm going to talk about it again, and I'm going to keep harping on it over and over and over and over again, just so it can just like seep into your minds, get through your heads. Because again, I think I talked about this yesterday with the LA Knight video, but it just boggles the mind how many very minuscule things you see in today's professional wrestling that people pop over because, I mean, they've been sheltered so long from actual storytelling that the simplest things gives them a pop that you just say to yourself, how is that a big deal? That was happening when I was a kid. Hell, that was happening when I was a young adult. And you get these teeny boppers who are like seeing this and they're making such a humongous deal out of it. And you're just like, dude, it's not that big of a deal until you recognize they've never really been in a position to see actual stories before. All they're fed all the time is the same repetitive nonsense when it comes to promos, and more importantly, when it comes to the actual matches. Now, it's not to say that matches cannot be a focal point. It's not to say that matches is not important, because they absolutely are. I don't want to be bored watching your match in the end of the day, okay? And not to mention, those matches do matter at the actual pay-per-view events at itself, because there's only so many story-driven things you can do at the pay-per-view. The point of the story-driven stuff is to draw people to want to watch your matches on the pay-per-view. That's what I'm saying. Matches are not something that I just want to discredit and say that it's not important. It absolutely is important. But what I feel is even more important, because as I just touched on that even 2 seconds ago, what gets me to want to watch your match is what you're currently doing on television. And all of these match repetitions happening over and over and over again, you give people a taste. You give people a taste of what they can expect if they pay $50 for your pay-per-view show. You give them at least one. If you want to stretch it, maybe 2 times a week, you give them 2 compelling matches. That's all they need. No one needs a bunch of goddamn matches. One match can be 10 minutes, and you can probably have that somewhere towards the opener or maybe the top of the hour. And then the second one can happen at the top of the hour, or that could be the main event. That's it. There's no reason to have 5 different matches all doing the same damn thing, but expecting people to pay $50 for a match quality that they are going to get on television anyways. No, that time and effort that you have on television should go directly to promoting a bunch of stories and get people who know what they're actually doing. You know, one of the things that I made a point in my universe mode, people can say whatever they want to say as far as it being racist or whatever it is, I made it a point in my universe mode to not use Japanese wrestlers. I do not use Japanese wrestlers in my universe mode. I don't use Japanese wrestlers because I know it ruins the illusion when I watch them cut promos, and they're not really, you know, it's not a reflection off of what they are in their real life. You know, I have someone like Kairi Sane. Kairi Sane cannot speak English. She just can't. You know, maybe broken, but nothing compared to what they show in the promos when you have to click the promos to conduct it. She does not speak that kind of clear of English. Same thing can be said about Asuka. Same thing can be said about Kenta. Same thing can be said about a Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, all this stuff can be said. So I just made it a point because it kind of hurts the image of what I'm trying to get across, and I just don't use them. Bray Wyatt's another one. I don't want to use Bray Wyatt because he has a spooky gimmick. His lines, his rhetoric will not reflect well enough with my promos. There's a reason why I do have the Paul Heyman glitch, and I use it for certain superstars because that's what I want to convey on my television. Right? And on my universe mode, I have a bunch of jobbers that I created. I made stuff like Match Creator, where I put finishers up to 3, and I would put KOs on to sell a story. Or I'll put finishers up to 3 and put finishers perform first, so it could be a squash match. A legitimate one, not the end game one, a legitimate squash match. It's so I can actually get to the point where, like, I can start focusing more on cutscenes. Because that's the end all be all. It's the cutscenes. It's the promos. That's what I want to get over. I only have 1 match on my universe mode per week that's actually good. Sometimes 2, just like I said, the same formula. Mainly, it's squash matches and it's promos. And when I get to the pay-per-view, then I have the Drew Gulak Daniel Bryan match I was promoting on my community post yesterday. That's where the important shit happens with the matches. Same concept in professional wrestling. Stop focusing so hard on the actual wrestling, especially if you're going to do things that's going to take away from your pay-per-view. Because what are we paying for then? What are we paying for? I pay a cable subscription to mainly watch professional wrestling to review it. While I'm reviewing that, I would like to have a reason coming out of that show and something newsworthy that happened so I can promote your pay-per-view on my channel, and I'm pretty sure everybody else wants that same effect also. Again, it's not to say matches aren't important. It's not to say you shouldn't have matches on your card. Just tone it down and focus mainly on the story. That's your main focal point. Just saying. And finally, and I feel this is the main thing that needs to happen for your superstars to get over, for your company to get over, for your entire image to be overhauled, and for what, in my opinion, if you do this, this is what you need to do to actually distinguish yourself, to be a true alternative to WWE. That's not me saying that. That's the attitude era saying that when they had to distinguish themselves and actually create a distance between them and WCW. That's not me. That's them saying that. You have to be counter culture. Now, Do not take counterculture and misconstrue that or manipulate that message to mean that you have to be edgy. I'm not saying you have to be edgy. Now, it doesn't hurt to be edgy, but I'm not saying that's what you need to do. What I am saying, though, is you should be doing things that kind of catch the attention of the normal person. You know, hey, what are they doing over there? Whether it's positive or whether it's negative, do not run away from what you're actually seeing. Now, granted, obviously, do not go overboard. Do not do things that are going to absolutely outright offend somebody, obviously. And yes, that includes the LGBT stuff, obviously. You don't want to go too far because you don't want to go away heat. But, you know, that still doesn't take away from the fact that you should be doing things that are edgy, that people may say to themselves, oh, that's offensive. It's not offensive. If you're not harming a person or saying something about a person that's going to harm them personally or offend them personally, for an example, you know, I personally do not like the fact that MJF likes to talk about devil worshippers and stuff like that. I don't like that. I kind of don't want to see that in my programming. I get that. So obviously I would like to look at or step in another person's shoes. And yeah, obviously, I mean, personally, I don't have a problem with it, but I can see why a person who's a transsexual have a problem with somebody making fun of someone who's transsexual on the television, right? It goes both ways. I don't care, but they don't care, just like I don't care about their religion, blah, 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 blah. You ain't got to go that far, obviously. But going on there and talking about misogyny, no, trust me, I can tell you right now, no one gives a shit about that, and they just pander to that nonsense. Going out there and picking on feminists, making a character that's acting like a Karen, doing all that kind of stuff, there's absolutely no reason not to do that. And hell, you can even go politically incorrect. Yes, I will call BLM politically incorrect because it's a bunch of bullshit in my opinion. Actually, no. Factually, that's not me. That's Patrice Cullors, the leader of BLM, who steals money and scams people out of their damn money. But again, I digress. You can even go the route of focusing on topics that are currently going on in the world that you want to show out. Now, again, obviously be very careful with this. You don't want to touch on something like Israel and Palestine, for an example. But having someone out there who's like, for an example, a Malcolm X type of character. They almost went that way with the New Day about 10 years ago at the inception of the New Day, when you had Xavier Woods come and he's looking like a revolutionary from the 1960s, Black Panther movement, whatever. You can do stuff like that, and you can touch on those kinds of topics. Now, granted, people may take it the wrong way because if you present them as heels, then what are you trying to say? But you work around that kind of stuff. You do shit like that. Pick on the things that are relatable to be picked on. Don't go too far so you don't offend somebody, but toe the line. WWE knew how to toe the line. You can get really, really aggressive with some of these topics that you just refuse to touch on because a small number of people are going to cause an uproar online. No, obviously, again, use common sense. Do not touch on LGBT stuff, obviously. Do not touch on religion at all, obviously. You ain't got to go that blue, but at the same time, touching on feminism, making BLM a storyline in order to go for it, again, you ain't got to go towards George Floyd and stuff like that, but actually make a stable that's very reminiscent to the Nation of Domination and have them touch on certain things. Stuff like that they refuse to touch on because, again, small number of eggplant emoji people are going to get super duper upset with what you show on television. And be risque also. I can literally talk about the billionth time about women and sexual appeal and what you should be having on your television show in order to, actually engage with that so-called 18 to 49 demographic. That's risque. Stuff like that. Be counterculture. Do the thing that is not the norm in today's society. Now, again, you got to know how to toe the line. There are going to be people you are going to offend, but that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Work something out with the network. You could be just as... Remember D-Generation X? Back in 1998 when they had their State of the Address? They blatantly, outright made fun of Bill Clinton. They just blatantly. You can never do that today. You can never go out of your way to make fun of Joe Biden just outwardly like that on wrestling because people are going to be upset because they're going to think you're getting too political. But notice how they did it. They did a parody of the State of the House address or whatever the case may be with what Bill Clinton did when he talked about Monica Lewinsky. You can do that. You can parody it. You can make fun of it without explicitly condemning anyone. That's what parody is. When SNL was actually good, that's what they did all the time on both sides of the aisle. That's what you want to see more of. That way people know when coming to your television show, what crazy shit are they going to do today or tonight, I guess. And wrap that all up into one. Take that all up into one. Think about that for a second. Think about it. When you downgrade the roster, okay, what is my favorite going to do tonight? When you cancel all the shows besides Dynamite, fuck, I gotta watch Dynamite tonight because I want to see what my favorite is doing. When you have a primary superstar, which eventually can be your favorite superstar, oh wow, I want to see what they're gonna do with my favorite superstar this week on Dynamite. I can't miss that. When you're focused on story, oh man, I wonder what crazy thing my favorite guy who's now world champion on Dynamite, I can't miss that programming. I wonder what he's gonna do this week. Because what happened last week or what happened on the show before him when he won the world championship, I need to know what's going to happen tonight. And when you're counterculture, it's I wonder what crazy thing my favorite guy who's world champion after everything that happened last night, I wonder what he's going to do tonight on this episode of Dynamite that I can't miss. Notice how I wrapped all those things up into one. Because that's what's going to get your product over. That's what's going to make you a true alternative. That's what's going to put you on the map if you truly are going up against WWE. Because notice, everything that I said right there, WWE isn't doing. They're not downgrading their roster. They have 3 fucking brands. They're not going to cancel any show. Raw and SmackDown, they're an institute. They're not going anywhere. Primary stars of the World Championship, their primary star isn't even there half the goddamn time. Story-driven matches. I can't tell you right now a story in WWE that has me super hyped up. Some of them may be good, but none of them have me, oh God, I can't wait to see what's going to happen on Friday. None of them. Not one story. If anything, the biggest story in wrestling to me is still Edge and Christian. What does that tell you? And be counterculture. WWE counterculture in 2023? Shit, right. Maybe in 2003. 2023? I think the fuck not. That's how you're actually an alternative. And notice how everything that I said, I don't feel is such a huge leap and bounds. Like, you're not traveling to the goddamn moon here. Okay? You're still on home base. These things can be done. 4 of these things can outrightly be done. And that 5th thing, the number 1 thing as far as counterculture goes, you can work within your means. I mean, goddamn, you had Juice Robinson go out there and put Freeman on quarters. So it's not as if you don't understand the concept of being edgy. You just got to know what line to draw. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and you guys tell me, are there other things you would like to see included in this list? Maybe there's some things that you feel like I could have included on this list that should be talked about. Again, I'm not here to talk about bullshit backstage drama. I'm not here to talk about nonsense in regards to Tony Khan being on Twitter. None of that stuff, that doesn't bother me, because whether that's good or bad, it doesn't affect the product of what I'm watching currently, and it damn sure ain't affecting the product of what the casuals are watching. That's what I care about. What are you doing on television that's going to entertain me while I'm reviewing the show? And what are you going to do on your television show that's going to make me want to review it and give positive and rave reviews about it every single week? But that's not up to me. That's up to Tony Khan. That's up to Tony Khan, and that's up to his management, that's up to his fans. Of which none of them actually care what the fuck I think, because they think I hate AEW and they think I want to see AEW die. In reality, they know that's not true, but they need to tell themselves something in order to cope. As always, my name is Devontae, and I'll be catching you guys later. Go back and watch the video again. You know you fucking loved it. Deuces, P. Ice.